Get ready, get set, and hold on. It's going to be one hell of a ride. Good morning, and welcome to the Mouth of Matuszak show on this Friday, August 8th, 2014. And I'm your host, Paul-Gregory Matuszak. Well, let's get started. Let's look at things going on in the world. Interesting information coming out late yesterday evening, kind of still formulating and being analyzed early this morning. Evidently, the President of the United States kind of got off his duff and finally looked at a little bit of the intelligence coming out of Iraq and decided that it might be time to actually do something. Yeah, he's authorizing airstrikes against Al-Qaeda Iraq and the Islamic State of Iraq, or ISIS as it was known, or ISIL for a while, or now just known as the Islamic State. Basically, it's all the same organization, just kind of changing their names and changing configuration. But I guess the way it looks is they finally had enough, because we increased the advisors over there. Now our advisors are under threat, and they need some backup, as well as the conditions over there are deteriorating. They have, up around Mosul and the areas in northern Iraq, ISIS, or whatever name you want to give to them this week, is going through and going into the towns and telling the Coptic Christians that live in the area and the Catholics that live in the area, you will convert or you will die. You'll convert to Islam right here, right now, or we're going to execute you right here, right now. And it's not just a threat. It's been going on. They've actually been doing this. And our advisor forces over there are ill-equipped to kind of go out and do direct military actions to handle it. And to top it off, the Al-Qaeda Iraq, or ISIS, or again, whichever name you want to give them this week, a good chunk of their munitions and their equipment that they've acquired is stuff that we left behind when Obama ordered us to pull out. This stuff was supposed to be turned over to the Iraqi military, but they went in and just like when we invaded Iraq, the Iraqi army did its usual, we're going to fight you, we're going to fight you, we'll fight you, we give up. And they walked away, and now ISIS has our former equipment that we left behind that was supposed to be for the Iraqi army and the Iraqi police forces. And they're using that equipment to attack the Iraqi nationals, the ones who are still loyal to the government that we stood up over there. Well, you'd think that the outrage going against just the Christian population would have been enough. I mean, had we had another president, it may have been enough to tip the scales. But it's gone even further. Up in the Kurdish area, you have a religion, a small fringe religion, that's kind of, it's an offshoot of the ancient Zoroaster religion, which means it predates Christianity. In fact, it may even predate Judaism, some people believe, as far as the original Zoroaster beginnings. But these people are called the Yazidis, or Yazidis. And they belong to a religion, like I said, they're kind of like, they are to Zoroasters what Mormons are to Christians, sort of. I guess it's the best way I can describe them. They were Zoroasters, and they believe that their people were visited by an angel, the angel Yazid, and they were given a very specific manner of worship. So they've established their little communities, and most of the people are born into the religion. There are very few people who convert in. And these people have lived in a kind of communal hermitage for centuries. Well, now ISI, AQI, whatever name you're going to give this group of terrorists, they are surrounding one of the mountain villages where they have one of their more holy sites in Iraq, and telling them, you will come down off your mountain and you will convert, or we will kill you, or we will come in and kill you. If we catch you off the mountain, you will convert on the spot, or we're going to kill you in the street. And this is their threat. And the thing is, it's not just a mere threat. They've been known to do this. They were doing this on the streets of Iraq even when we had a large U.S. presence still there. It would happen. We'd find out about it. We do our investigations and intelligence on it, and we try to track them down. And sometimes we'd catch the perpetrators, sometimes not. They'd go and hide back in the shadows and hide among the innocents like the cowards that they are. Well, now that they no longer have the big bad United States military there protecting the Iraqi people, they feel that they're free to go and do this with complete impunity. And the scary thing is, they are doing this with impunity. Now, how did all this come about, this problem come about in Iraq? You want a real dose, I mean a good hard dose of reality here. A little lesson in world history and the way the way military operations work. Some idiot decided to go and tell our enemies that here's the date we're leaving, and did it well in advance, and then we pulled out right about that time, plus or minus. And all they had to do was sit back, be quiet, not do any attacks for a while, make everybody think that everything was nice and peaceful while they re-equipped themselves and waited, knowing that we were going to leave. And as soon as we left, do a little bit more reorganization, a little bit more logistical work, and then remount their offensive. And that's exactly what they did. You never tell your enemy, we've got you almost defeated. Don't worry, though, we're leaving on this date. Because all you're doing is giving them the opportunity to stand up and start doing their evil as soon as you walk out the door. It's like, imagine if you're a police officer and you have a domestic dispute. And you keep having these domestic disputes going on at this house. So you start doing regular patrols around the neighborhood, and you start, being ready for as soon as the cops are called for the next violent argument or altercation goes on in this house. And you're in there, and you're standing around, and you're diffusing things, and you just tell people, "Hey, we're going to be out of here in 15 minutes. We're leaving in 15 minutes. So just be nice and be friendly to each other." And they all start calling each other lovey-dovey and everything and being nice for 15 minutes. You know full well that you as a police officer, as soon as you leave, they're going to sit there and they're going to start going right back at it, because they know all I have to do is wait 15 minutes and you're gone, and they can resume their bad actions towards each other. That's exactly what we did in Iraq. We sat there, we were protecting the good people, and we told the bad people, just wait, and as soon as we're gone, you can go back to doing what you're doing. That is the policy that failed, and this is the results of that. So now, authorizing airstrikes and drops of humanitarian relief to the Yazidis and the Kurds, it's a day late and a dollar short. We should have been doing this a while ago. In fact, we probably should not have left. Maybe could have reduced our forces to pre-surge levels and still maintained peace there, but the ground truth is, when we left nothing but a few advisor teams there, out there alone and unafraid, out there flapping with no backup, we basically invited the terrorists to come in and take over the country. That's just my 2 cents. Coming down from a few years of doing the operational and military intelligence work, and actually, spent a couple of days here and there in Iraq. So it's just my 2 cents. I could be wrong. Somebody who's not spent any quality time there, like Obama, might actually know better than I do. I doubt it, though. Anyway, that's the world news. I'm not too keen on starting us Friday off with the bad note, but hopefully we'll be able to end towards a good note. I'm looking for the good news as we go on the weekend, and right now I'm not seeing much of it. Because as you turn your attention towards another section of the Middle East, you've got the whole Gaza thing still going on. They had a 72-hour-long ceasefire. Great news that nobody was doing anything. Both sides abided by it. Israel was nice and didn't do their operations hunting down any more Hamas bad guys. And Hamas held up their end and didn't do any bad actions. The very minute that the ceasefire ended, what did Hamas do? They started lobbing rockets. One of their largest rocket barrages ever went off as soon as that ceasefire ended. The alarms for the rocket attack started going off. The Iron Dome started doing what it could. You know, the minute it ended, 72 hours, bink, alarm went off. Okay, we can go back to killing you now. That was the way Hamas looked at it. Hey, we abided by the ceasefire, though. We were nice guys. So that kind of should show the world how great and wonderful these Palestinian terrorists are. And people, I'm not calling all Palestinians terrorists. I'm not. And not all of them are Muslims. Not all of them are Christians. Believe it or not, there is such thing as a Palestinian Jew. Okay? I'm not saying that these people of this particular ethnic group are all bad. They're not. The problem is there's a small group of them who are loyal to Hamas who are bad people. And nobody is stopping them. If the people themselves rose up and overthrew Hamas within Gaza, it would be great. It would be wonderful. Get rid of them and get rid of Hezbollah and take care of their own problems. And next thing you know is they'd have the protections of Israel and they'd all be singing Kumbaya and everything would be great. But they're not. They're afraid. They have reasons to be afraid because they're facing off against an armed threat and they're unarmed. So that's how I see it. Now this, like I said, this conflict has been going on for millennia. Everybody says, oh, this has been going on since Israel formed in 1947, 1948, blah, 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 Yom Kippur War, blah, blah, blah. Those people needed to go back and take a look at some historical texts. And the best historical texts we have to put this in context are within the Old Testament. Goliath was a Palestinian. He was a Palestinian hero. David was a warrior who eventually became the king of the Hebrews. But before he was king of the Hebrews, he's a little shepherd boy who joined the military and picked up a piece of leather with a couple of strings tied to it, put a rock in it, spun it over his head, let go of one end and let the rock fly and knocked the giant Palestinian bully square in the forehead and knocked him on his fourth point of contact, his rear end. And that, that wasn't even the beginning of the hostilities. That was just one key event that happened to happen, back in the past, a few millennia ago. So this has been going on for a while, folks. This isn't a new conflict. So keep things in that perspective. This is not something that's just a couple of decades old. So again, that's our world news. So everybody, kind of keep your eyes out. Now, as far as other world news that it now has carried itself over to the United States, the CDC is now talking that before they were saying that there's no way Ebola could be a threat in the United States, our sanitation and cleanliness and blah, 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 blah. Well, also late yesterday, it came out that some senior officials over at the CDC admitted that bringing the Ebola patients back home that they did, although they took every precaution possible and could have reduced, from the 2 or 3, and last count I had was actually 2 names of people with Ebola that they brought back and treated who are doing well by last reports. They took every precaution available and the risk from those cases is extremely limited. However, people coming in carrying the virus or showing no symptoms of the virus who may be hopping on flights originating in Africa and ending up in the United States could be carrying it, could bring it, and that there is still a possibility of an outbreak. And they don't have all those medical protections, those sanitary protections, the sterilization protections that the 2 patients had. So that the chances for an outbreak in the United States are a lot greater than the public was kind of initially led to believe by our officials within the government. Now, does that mean you need to go into widespread panics and start walking around wearing body condoms? I don't think so, people. I don't think the threat is that great, But just know that the chances are there. It's not as impossible as we were originally led to believe. So keep that in mind. So if you see somebody with blood coming out of their eyes and visibly have some kind of a fever where they're bleeding out their pores, starts asking for help, you might not want to touch their bodily fluids. Just saying. Call a doctor and then go look for a body condom if you're going to deal with the person. But most of us are not medical personnel and probably wouldn't do too much other than call 911 and look at somebody bleeding out their pores and their eyes, and etc., and kind of want to stay back, because Ebola is not the only disease that could enter America that carries hemorrhagic fever. That means when you have a fever and you start bleeding out of parts of your body. There's also the Hunta virus, which does exist along our southwest and south central border region throughout Texas and New Mexico and Arizona, and that's carried through rat droppings. So just a little segue on a public health announcement here, folks. Those of you who like to drink soft drinks out of aluminum cans, you may want to wash the top of the cans off before you either drink out of the can or pour the can into another vessel, like a glass or a cup, because just in case there could be rat droppings on there. Again, people have been doing this for years and drinking the stuff, so there hasn't been a huge outbreak of the Hunta virus either, but it is another thing that could be there. So don't mistake the two. Unless you're a doctor and you can tell by looking at somebody you have Ebola or you have Hunta virus or one of the other diseases that causes hemorrhagic fever, don't go into a panic. Just know that you need to not come in contact with the bodily fluids, call 911, and let the professionals handle it. They already know if they see somebody with some kind of a hemorrhagic fever going on, not to, or they know to take precautions to protect themselves. So, do the right thing. So there's some of the interesting things that have been coming out of Washington over the last, in Atlanta, over the last couple of hours. So, now you know.
You don't have a right to know everything in a separation of powers government, my friend. That is the difference between a parliamentary government and a separation of powers government.
And Representative Norton, I'm going to dispel your comments at every possible opportunity. So now that you know some of what's going out there, keep your eyes posted in the news. There's plenty of more information coming out. Those of you that are not on Twitter, you may want to get a Twitter account and follow some of the news feeds out there. And I'm not talking about CNN, Fox, and ABC, etc. I'm talking about looking at like the Drudge Report, stuff coming out of Breitbart, and of course BuzzPo, and some of the other so-called new media outlets, because a lot of them have reporters that have good sources that are willing to put stuff out without having to deal with some kind of an organization above them, some kind of administration above them deciding what they will and will not print, and what party line they're going to have to toe. So keep that all in mind. So, another little segue for you. Good old Bull Bergdahl went through 2 days of interviews and interrogation. And the word coming down now is that the general officer who is interviewing him can make some recommendations based on his investigations, but he will not be responsible for actually initiating any kind of punitive or administrative actions against Bo Bergdahl. All he's doing is the investigation. And because he's an investigator, he cannot prefer any charges. All I can do is turn over his findings. Now, what's going to happen with Bo Bergdahl? Chances are something is going to happen. He will get some kind of Uniform Code of Military Justice action. My money is going to be on a rather high-ranking field grade or possibly even general grade Article 15, and then he's going to